welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dr. Pamela, and today we are opening the conversation around the other side of fertility that doesn't get discussed enough. So, men's reproductive health. So, we calling this episode the Yang of the Yin. I know this is a TCM concept because we want to be diving into male energy, sperm vitality, and how lifestyle choices directly impact fertility. So we have Dr. Erin. Welcome back, Dr. Erin.
Hello.
Excellent. So this is such an important topic. So in TCM, yang energy is the masculine type of energy. It drives the warmth, and this is the one that power the conception. Without the yang energy, the yin, which is actually the eggs, the women stuff, doesn't get the sparks we need. We have this concept in traditional Chinese medicine. We call it Jing, Jing. So, Dr. Erin, tell us more about this Jing in traditional Chinese medicine.
One of those things that I guess a lot of it. It's
Yes.
fascinating and a little bit hard to try to summarize it in the Western language. In the Chinese way they talk about it, one word says a million things.
Yes.
So in the Western world, I think it's best to say it's kind of the idea of your essence, your personal blueprint. It's from your DNA. So what your parents contribute to you at birth, you get from each part. So your Jing is a combination of their Jing. So you've got that ancestral part. You have to preserve it and protect it and nourish it. So you can, in Chinese medicine, we always say you can exhaust your Jing. You can, premature aging is what we would say. You can wear it out too soon if you don't care for yourself very well.
Perfect. So it's safe to say that based on traditional Chinese medicine, when we look at the Jing, so we look beyond the lab result. So we look the energetic signature of the sperm. So can you guide us? What is it about between the qi, the blood flow, the circulation of the Jing?
So I think to say this, we also have to say when we talk about DNA, it's very science, right? We're
Yes.
thinking about genes. But Jing is so much more than that. When we talk about Jing and essence, your being, it's also very spiritual. It's like the sacred part of what makes you. That's what I mean about your blueprint. It's not just your genes, it's also like your purpose. Why are you here? What's your connection to the cosmos? Who are you designed to be? So when we talk about that, then you want to marry. That is a male's contribution to his offspring. A man is not just contributing his DNA, he's contributing his being, his essence, who he is at that moment of conception. So if you have a male who is sedentary and doesn't move around a lot and eats a really crappy diet and has a lot of health issues and various things, high stress, and it's like the chemistry of that person's body is not great, and that's going to be affecting his Jing, his essence, and that's part of what he's contributing to the development of that child. So from a qi and blood and yin and yang, you want to have abundance of all of those things, and you want them all moving really freely and really effectively, because that's how you keep the Jing healthy and strong. And so if those things aren't happening, that's not flowing very well or is really losing its capacity, it's going to affect the Jing in that way.
So it's safe to say, remembering the discussion last week about stagnation, right?
Yeah.
So if a male have a stagnation in his presentation, you talk about sedentary living. So the quality of the sperm affect the fertility. And then the next question is, can sperm quality contribute to miscarriage?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's really catching on more in the scientific world There's a lot more. Historically, we just kind of thought miscarriage belongs to females. Like it
Yes.
was her inability to do that thing. And now, really, because of IVF and all the study, we have really had an opportunity to examine what's happening in those different stages. And yes, male issues definitely contribute to miscarriage. We're saying about the Jing, it's sort of like the phrase that you hear in the West is DNA fragmentation. It's kind of like
Yes.
saying the genetic spiral isn't good. It's got mistakes in it and it's maybe kind of clunky or chunky. It can't replicate well. So when you're in that initial stage of cellular doubling and it's becoming an embryo, and then that embryo has to grow into a fetus very promptly, it can't do that if the gene is messed up. And that's what we're seeing in that genetic coding issue. That is very contributory to miscarriage, especially early miscarriage, those in the first few weeks.
That's an important information over there. So it's kind of reframe the thoughts between male and female. So fertility is basically not just like women. It has to do with the male as well. So in order to prevent recurrent miscarriage or difficulty conceiving or receiving pregnancy, both parties, they have to be able to play or take action on their side. So leading
I
to this,
think
yes,
it's a great article. I just want to throw this in there.
yeah,
I think historically we've also thought about eggs and sperm. It's a
yes,
great. So the egg is this big cell and it's just hanging out, doing its thing. And then the sperm, this is their job. And that I think is just such a beautiful example of yin and yang. The yin is that she's just present and she's hanging out there. And the yang has to have all that energy. So, what we were talking about with that miscarriage, if the sperm are like this, or if they're like this, and they can't get to where they need to go and they don't have any go-go juice, you don't get that transformation and the blast off that we need
mhm,
for conception to take hold. And I just read this article that said that now they have some great evidence that shows that the egg is not just floating around. Basically, the egg is sending out her own chemical signals and it's like a beacon. So she's
yes,
drawing the right match to her. I just like to say that because I feel
yes.
like
It's beautiful. It's supposed to get in their head, this parents or partner trying to conceive. They need to have this vision. It's not just a rigid vision. One plus one is B. No, it's not that. They have to view this in the metaphorically. It's present inside their body.
egg, she is looking, she's out there, come and find me. And she
Yes,
wants the one of these guys. So you really want to nurture that whole idea. You can't sit all day and expect your sperm to be really fast. You got to give them an opportunity in your body, an opportunity to move around to really help that process.
beautiful. Leading to this conversation, do you have any practical suggestion for lifestyles factors that can deplete male fertility?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think chronic stress, we're talking about it in all the different parts of life, but definitely for men, chronic stress, overworking, and it's not just what you would might think about manual labor. We're not just talking about men that work outside. We're talking about long hours, being in a high stress position, shift work. People that go to work, male and female, people that go to work at the wrong time of day. If the
Yeah.
world is getting up and you're going to sleep, it's your body's not right there. So that can affect male fertility. There's all those different, if you're just not getting enough rest, it affects the male very much, just as much as the female. So again, we tend to think men high energy and they're masculine and they're big and beefy and all that, but that's not really true. They need that downtime just as much as women do.
Perfect. How about food? So I know when we talk about young, right, it's all that the one that have blood, like eat more meat. But do you think they should add some vegetable and fruits in their diet?
I think that's one of the number one things you find in fertility is that men tend to be really heavy into protein. They don't tend to eat a lot of girly food. They're not eating colorful salads and fruits and veggies because it's not something that they always gravitate towards. So I would say, yes, increasing the natural fruits and vegetables with a lot of colors because that's where all that good phytochemistry is. The chemicals that help your body do all these things that we're talking about, thinning the blood and helping the liver filter itself out and get rid of toxins and poisons. So they really do need to emphasize that. And I also always love to talk to men about, yes, the meat, but like fish.
Yes.
So, right, when you think
Mhm.
about fish, salmon,
Mhm.
right? It's got to swim upstream. It's fighting against the current. That's exactly what we want the sperm to be doing. So it's like perfect visual. So eating lots of salmon, those big fish that are caught in the deep water and they're really strong, like a tuna.
Right.
Yes, because they have that really amazing energy. And that's what you take into the body and it helps transform that sperm. Oysters, of course, because
Oh,
they're
yes.
they're delicious and they're high in zinc. That's why they've always said to be an aphrodisiac because of the way that it helps turn things on in the masculine body. We should always talk about bone broth. I always come
Yes.
back to broth. That's a big one. And then other things like kidney foods in Chinese medicine, kidney foods, walnuts, sesame seeds, any kind of those omega fats, they really need to emphasize those too. And
Definitely eggs. So the idea of balancing meat, vegetable, fruits, the sea creature, right? It's part of balancing the yin and yang. The yang is the one with the blood, and then the yin is the fruit and vegetable. So when you balance these two, right, it's just a beautiful compilation to receive or do the conception.
right.
So before we close this podcast today, always we would like Dr. Erin to give us 3 unconventional tips for male fertility.
Phones and screens and all of the radio frequency stuff, it's definitely doing some damage. So the rule is don't ever put your laptop on your lap. Don't put your phone in your pocket, stuff like that. You don't want those frequencies to be anywhere near the groin as much as possible. So some men will even buy protective elements, that things that have a barrier to try to protect those. So I think that's a big one. Exercise is great, right? We're talking about not being sedentary, but you could really go too far. So what we tend to look at in the fitness industry, guy on the magazine with the ripped abs, that is often a really subfertile person. Statistically, you can look it up. Men that are in their peak physical muscular development are often really low in their sperm. And so it's like your body is borrowing all the energy from the sperm development to do that muscle development and that endurance training. So Ironman and triathlon, if those men go get a sperm test, they're really low. So over exercise is just as bad as under exercise. So you need to tone it down and not do so much endurance and work a little bit more on being cool, being relaxed, do some yoga, keep your gonads cool. So buying those special underwear that they call them like huggers, the underwear that
Mhm.
have the little
Yes.
cups to keep the temperature low if you're going to be out exercising or sweating or whatnot. So all of those things, a little bit of cold therapy, cold shower, jumping in a cold pool, but just a little bit. You just want enough that you get that good chemical reaction in the body, which actually turns on the yang. Your body wants to compensate for the cold exposure, so it turns on the yang, but you don't want to stay in it for too long. And unplugging, having an end of the day ritual, turn the TV down, turn the lights down, get off your phones, just be quiet for a little while and let your body really come into its resting place. All those things will make that yang energy more prolific. Like you have to have up. Sperm are up, so you have to have down to make sure that that cycle continues.
That was gold. So thank you so much, Dr. Erin, as always. Thank you for sharing your brilliance. I'm always amazed how you came up with all this great information. So remember, for all the listeners out there, when we support men's fertility journey, like the Jing and the Yang, we are not just boosting the fertility, we are building the health for future generation. So that's
Right.
the main thing. To have a baby because you want to have a baby, but this is the future generation. So we want a healthy future generation. So again, thank you so much. So if this podcast resonate with you, please share that with someone else so we can help them. You can help them. And then we shall see you in the next episode. and take care for now.